In this example, I want to go ahead and take a look at a few of the advanced expressions that we could have in DynamoDB, and specifically accessing DynamoDB from the CLI. If you look, the key condition expression examples, up until this point we've only dealt with equality, but you'll notice that there are other operations, specifically inequality, between, and, begins with, and I want to look at a few of those operations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize this browser window because I have my terminal window behind here, and my terminal window, I'm going to go ahead and write a few expressions. So the first one I want to start with is just a query expression. So I'm going to do a query to look at all the players that belong to the Angels, and we've looked at this expression before, but then I want to go ahead and modify it a little bit. So I'm going to do an AWS DynamoDB query, and we're going to have a parameter for the table name being baseball stats. We're doing this against my local machine, so the endpoint URL. And then we're going to have a key condition expression. And the key condition expression, we're going to say the team ID equal to a variable, $t. And then we're going to supply the value for $t by supplying expression attribute values. Okay, and the expression attribute values, we're going to pass in a JSON string where we're defining $t as a JSON object that is a string that has a value of player info underscore LAA. Okay, and I believe we've seen this query before in a previous video, and I think the syntax is all correct here. And if I go ahead and run this, it looks like I have an issue. And I just want to see, oh, I'm missing a curly brace right here. Okay, so what we'll see is that we have 4 player records that belong to the Los Angeles Angels. What I want to do is I want to clear the screen. I want to run that same statement, but what I want to do is I want to actually add to the key condition expression. So the key condition expression right now, I'm looking for a specific team ID. What I want to do is I want to do a secondary key condition expression with an AND. So I'm saying AND the sort key. And if you remember our data set, since we're looking at players, the sort key in this example is actually equal to the player number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a variable called number. Okay, so now that I've set up that variable for the number, now I have to supply that as a second parameter here. So right now I have $t equal to that player info underscore LAA, and I want to have a second variable which is $number, and I want that equal to another string. So another object that is a string, and in this case that string has a value. I'm just going to go ahead and put in 99, and in reality there is no player in our data set that plays for the Angels and has a number of 99. So I just want to see the results of that. So we should see that there are 0 records selected. But if we do a player that actually exists for the Angels, so like I believe Mike Trout is 27, so we get 1 record. If I clear the screen and I try a different player number, so Shohei Ohtani, I believe, is 17, or Albert Pujols, I think, is 5. So any of those numbers would work, but really the key idea here is that I'm able to combine these key condition expressions. So I'm able to do ANDs with those key condition expressions. Okay, another thing that we might want to do is we might want to look at all the players whose position is right field. So right here you can see here's a starting pitcher. I can't remember what Cole Calhoun's player number is. If I scroll back up to one of the queries where I didn't have the player number, then we should see Cole Calhoun is a right fielder, and he's number 56. Okay, so I want to look at all the right fielders in the data set. Okay, so I want to do a scan and filter where the position equals right field. So I'm going to do AWS DynamoDB scan. My table name is going to be baseball stats. The endpoint URL will be my local machine. Okay, and then my filter expression is going to be position equal to :p, and then my expression attribute values are going to fill in the values for :p. So I'm going to say :p is equal to some object that's a string that has a value of right field. Okay, and I believe that's the correct syntax there. And you're going to see that I get an exception saying that the attribute name's a reserved keyword. So position in this case is a keyword. Okay, so I want to fix that. And the way I do that is basically I create an alias for that attribute name. And you might be thinking, well, can I just avoid using keywords for attribute names? I would suggest that maybe that's possible in some sense, but the power of a NoSQL database is that I'm going to collect kind of unedited data from my end users, including some dynamic attributes, and I can't control what my end users are going to call those attributes. So my suggestion is not to necessarily avoid attributes that are reserved words, but instead just deal with them. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to run that same statement, except instead of position, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an alias for that position attribute. So I'm going to call it $position. And the convention is that if I'm going to create an alias, it typically is going to start with a $. So I'm going to refer to the position attribute as $position. But then I have to tell this statement that I do have an additional parameter where I'm creating that alias. And the way I do that is with a parameter called expression attribute names. Okay, and the expression attribute names is basically a JSON statement saying $position is going to be mapped to the position field. Okay, and I need that quoted, right? Anytime I have JSON, I need that quoted. Okay, and if I do that, now I can refer to $position in my filter expression, and you can see that I'm getting all the right fielders. So I'm getting Aaron Judge and Cole Calhoun from my data set. Okay. Another thing that I might want to do is, let's say I wanted to, with our data set, we really have 3 different types of objects. We have players, and we have games, and we have teams. So what if I wanted to just select all of the teams in the data set? So the way I would do that is there's a statement or a command that lets me check, does the string begin with? So it's actually looking at 2 strings and comparing them. And I can say, does it begin with a certain string pattern? And if I want to look at all the teams, I know that all of the teams' team ID begins with team info _. Okay, so I want to write an expression where I'm looking for just the teams in the data set. Okay, so normally if I'm working with the team ID, which is the partition key of our table, I would do a query. But because begins with is pattern matching, and it's not actually looking at the key, it's not doing a equality operator, I can't use the key condition expression. I have to use a filter expression. So I'm actually going to do a scan in this case. So I'm going to do a DynamoDB scan. And again, our table name will be baseball stats. That won't change. And our endpoint URL will be the local machine. Okay, and then our filter expression, we want to say that something begins with, and what we're saying is that the team ID begins with a variable t. That's our filter expression. And then we're going to have our expression attribute values, where we're defining that :t is again equal to some string, and that string in this case is going to be team info underscore. Okay, and the idea here is that we're just going to see the team records. Looks like I have maybe a typo, so I have DynamoDB. So I'm just going to scroll back, and I'm using the back arrow. If I use the up arrow, I would run into problems of running the previous command. So I'm using the back arrow, and you'll notice that I'm just getting the team records once I fixed my typo. Okay, so it looks like there's 9 team records. So this looks like a lot of data. So maybe the team ID and the sort key, maybe I don't care about any of that. Maybe I only care about the team names. Okay, so some of it is maybe I do care about it, but maybe in the background. But if it's for display purposes, maybe I only care about the team name and I don't want all of this additional data. One thing that I can do is I could do that through code, but another thing that I could do is I could say I actually only care about the team name, and the way I can do that is by specifying the projection expression. And the projection expression basically is a list of the fields or the attributes that you want to output. Okay, so in this case I want just the team name. So you'll notice I get the same 9 records, but I'm not getting the full object in this case. I'm only getting the attribute that's specified in the projection expression, which is the team name. Okay, so this is just kind of a quick overview of some advanced AWS DynamoDB CLI commands that are going to come into play from time to time.